Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Podcast on D-Shot. My guest today is Mitch Thunder Nelles. I don't know if you're still a radio personality, but you were with Homer for several years and then the Big 920. So about time I get you on as we're going to talk the Bucks Net series and the playoff run so far and preview the next round.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. You're right. I was on ESPN Milwaukee. I was on the Big 920. I was on 97.3. And now I'm doing my own Facebook thing every morning at 7:30. You can catch me, Thunder MKE. And I'm excited to be here.
All right. So let's just kind of talk about the last series because the Bucks won. It seems like we ended a curse because I know after Game 5, I felt like, as a Wisconsin sports fan, you felt like, why can't we have nice things?
That's right.
After that choke act in Game 5. So let's kind of maybe we can start from the beginning with this series because the Nets kind of took the home court right away. Middleton and Holiday didn't really do well. The first game they weren't really great, even though Holiday's numbers were okay. But then the Bucks I was there for in the Deer District for Game 3.
Okay.
Bucks kind of took it back. Let's just kind of start with those first two games and work on from there.
Absolutely. I mean, the first two games, like you said, the Nets held serve. And Game 1 ended up being an 8-point game, but the Bucks scored the last 6 minutes in trash time. So it felt more like a 15-point game where the Nets controlled it. And then Game 2 was just like the debacle, right? Game 2 was the one where Stephen A. Smith came out and said that the Bucks were an embarrassment. And it looked like all the talking heads, especially nationally, but even locally, for the most part, were saying, "Oh, the Nets got this is a bad matchup for the Bucks. The Nets have this, even without James Harden. The way Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving played, and the bench, all the other guys for the Nets played out of their minds in Game 2." And I remember saying, I was on the next morning. I remember saying on my Facebook Live, I'm not so sure the series is over yet, because they won by 39 and they led by 49, but they've won their 2 games at home. That's what they're supposed to do. So what did the Bucks do, Daniel? You know what they did their next 2 games, right?
They held serve again at their place, which
That's
I have not been there yet. I still need to get to Fiserv Forum. Deer District was a cool experience in Game 3. It was a little bit of a nerve-wracking game. I know I got my phone out and on that Drew Holiday thing and tried to do a fake play-by-play call of that play. I know that in my video, there's some dude in the background saying, call timeout. And I'm like, in my head, looking back at that, I'm like, I'd be like Pat Miller and not call timeout in that situation. Just bring the clock down.
Let the players play, right?
Yeah.
And Drew Holiday's spin move, that was awesome. But that was, what Game 3, I think, showed us and showed the Bucks even is they forgot about playing offense, because they were trying to play offense with the Heat. They were better than the Heat. And then the first 2 games against the Nets, they thought they could show up and play their offense and compete. And Game 2 just went weird. But Game 3, the Bucks said, screw it. We're not playing offense anymore. We're going to play defense. We're going to play better defense than we've played all year long. And we're going to play tough D. They have that game was 86-83 or 86-82 or whatever it was. That both teams were in the 80s, and the Bucks dictated that. The Bucks came out and said, we're going to play defense. We're going to focus on defense. And from then on, it was a different series.
Do you feel like from Game 3 onward, it kind of felt like most of the points were being scored by obviously Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday for the most part, because when you look at Game 3, it was like some absurd percentage, maybe over 70% of the points were scored by just those 3 or those 2.
Yeah. Listen, in Game 7, Brook Lopez ended up having a good scoring game. But PJ Tucker's not giving them much on offense. And then you look, if they're not going to use Portis, whose focus is offense, and they're really just going to use Connaughton. I mean, Connaughton hit 2 huge threes in game 7, but you're not getting a lot of points out of Connaughton. So yeah, you're really looking at getting all your points from Giannis, Middleton, Holiday. So I think they said at game 3, we're going to play defense and we're going to count on these 3 guys with a little bit of Brook to figure out our scoring, and that's it. And it worked. I mean, you could say they won game 3. I know they won game 4, and that's kind of the Kyrie Irving game where he got hurt, and so that was kind of a weird game. But they were up by 17 in the third quarter in game 5. I mean, they should have won game 5. You know what happened in game 5? They forgot that rule. They forgot that they were just going to play defense. They got up by 17, and they went into the old Bucks mode of, we can just play offense and show up and beat anybody. Well, you know what? You can't do that when you're playing the best offensive player on earth, and his name is Kevin Durant.
How much obviously it feels like the series really shifted right when Kyrie got hurt, because then it was just like you knew it was going to be like Durant and Kyrie. Harden wasn't 100% in the whole series, but then it really shifted where it was just like the Bucks could really just take advantage of him being out and Harden not being at 100%, and it put a lot of onus on.
If Irving's healthy the whole way, I think the Nets probably win the series. If Harden doesn't get hurt, the Nets probably win the series. But that's part of playing the game and having 12, 15 players on a team. I mean, the Bucks have a starter who's out for the year. Dante DiVincenzo plays, the Bucks probably hang on and win game 5. And so it's easy to say, yes, if Irving had played, I mean, granted, if Durant, Irving, and Harden are all playing at the top of their games, the Nets are probably the best team in the NBA. They just are, because of the talent of those 3 players, and the bench guys around them are good enough. But Irving wasn't healthy all year. He missed a bunch of games. Harden missed more than 20 games at the end of the year. Durant isn't going to play every game. So when you put together a roster of guys who have a history of getting hurt or getting banged up or not being able to finish, that's what's going to happen. And there's no apologies. There's no asterisks. There's no questions about it. They played 7 games. The Bucks won 4 of them. You put your team on the court. If guys are hurt, guys are hurt. If guys are healthy, guys are healthy. If you're figuring out mixing and matching while it's going on, that's your job. Your NBA players, your NBA coaching staffs, your NBA front offices, you put this team together. I mean, when the Nets traded James Harden for James Harden, they gave up Karis LeVert, they gave up Jared Allen, and I don't know that they had to give up Jared Allen. I don't know that they had to give up all the pieces they gave up. They gave them up, and that made their team less deep. And then when Irving or Harden got hurt, they couldn't compensate.
Did you kind of have the same feeling that I had during parts of this series? I know it's probably going to sound a little bit cliche because I know I felt this way in game 3. I know I felt this way in the first half of game 7, where it was just like in game 7 in the first half when the Nets were getting those misses. There was like a 2 or 3 minute stretch in game 7 where the Bucks weren't really capitalizing off of that. I know there was a 2 to 3 minute stretch in game 3 where it seemed like neither team could hit a shot. What's your kind of thought on that a little bit?
I mean, you're a sports fan. It's nerve-wracking. There were times where it was hard to watch, and you can give credit to the defense, but it's also, especially in game 7, there was a lot of fatigue. I mean, and the broadcasters made comment about that over and over again. Durant, not as much Harden, but definitely Durant, definitely Giannis, even Middleton. And Middleton's kind of the Iron Man. He plays more minutes than Giannis does. Pulling on their shorts, leaning over. In playoff basketball, weird things happen, and you have an overtime that is, I know Lopez hit those 2 free throws, with 0.3 seconds left, but really that overtime, 5 minutes of basketball was 4-2, 6 total points in 5 minutes of play. And it was definitely fatigue, and it was definitely forcing shots to try to make, if one of those shots goes in, it changes the whole complexion of the game. And I get that, but there was also that playoff intensity, that pressure gets to you sometimes.
Before we kind of hit on the other part of that game, the other thing I want to kind of throw in here is obviously we saw a huge game in game 6 from K-Mid with 38 points. And I know there was maybe some sort of narrative saying that he played well in the games at home in that series, but then he didn't really play that well in some of the road games in that series. But it was nice to see in game 7 to see him and Holiday kind of come up late with some huge baskets for the Bucks down the stretch.
No doubt about it. I mean, listen, his splits home and away are pretty dramatic. I mean, he's one of the top 10 players in the world at home, and he's not even an all-star on the road. But I said after game 6, the encouraging thing is, and if this could happen more, this would be great. If Giannis could score 30 points and not lead the team in scoring, they're going to win. Usually it'll be Middleton, but even if Holiday could go off for a 35-point game or whatever it is, if Giannis can score 27 to 30 points and not lead the team in scoring, they're scoring enough points to win. Listen, Chris Middleton is who he is. He is an all-star. He is a highly paid professional. He has limits to his game that will always keep him from being a superstar, I believe. I don't ever believe he'll be in the same breath as Kawhi, Kyrie, Harden, Durant, Giannis, Devin Booker at this point, Jason Tatum have taken that leap above Chris Middleton. But Chris Middleton is in that next tier of guys who are really, really good, who are stars. Chris Middleton is a star. He might not be an apex superstar, but he is a star in this league. And when the Bucks needed a bucket in overtime, Chris Middleton drives down the lane and then does that, and then does that fadeaway and hits that fadeaway. And that's the bucket the Bucks needed, and Middleton got it.
I want to kind of hit on something before we move to the next, the other Eastern Conference series.
Sure.
Obviously, Jim Paschke retired this year. So I want to get your kind of thoughts on who do you think ends up replacing Paschke as the TV voice in Milwaukee?
I'm going to go with Mitch Thunder Nelles. Man, I have no idea. That's a really good question. A lot of it depends on what route they want to go. Do the Bucks want to get younger and hipper? Do they hire a 30-year-old who can connect with the younger audience? Or do they go with a tried and true voice around Wisconsin, someone who's a little more seasoned, a veteran? I would have already offered the job to Brian Anderson. And to see if he could do it. I don't think he would take it. I mean, he's doing national NBA games. He's doing the Brewers. He's busy enough. I think he likes that he can do the Brewers games and do the national stuff. But he would be the first guy I would talk to. But beyond that, they're gonna do a national search. I mean, they're gonna look everywhere. But I hope they don't get kind of an established, like when Gus Johnson came in a couple of years ago and was awful. He was just horrible. He was a debacle. And he's fun to listen to in the national stuff, but he was not the right fit. And everybody knew it even before he called his first game. So I really don't know. I'm interested to see what direction they go in. What do you think?
I think I agree with kind of the Brian Anderson type route where maybe you go after somebody who obviously will get Brian Anderson and where he was.
Yeah.
Be a minor league guy that called games there, or
sure.
Obviously Brian Anderson was on the Golf Channel
right.
And did stuff for the Spurs prior to that. Maybe that route, but I'm gonna say it's bold. How about the next play-by-play person for the Bucks ends up being Zora Stevenson?
Ooh.
And really kind of I don't think that there's a female like play-by-play person for like a regional network.
Right.
Like, that'd be a setting a new
Doris
norm.
Burke, right. Obviously Doris Burke does NBA games. I'm trying to think if there's
Is
somebody.
it Beth
Nobody.
Mullins or something?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For what? I'm trying to think if the Lakers actually have one. But I don't know if they have a. I mean, listen, I don't hate that. Zora is a superstar. She is phenomenal. Wow.
You could
Daniel,
maybe we
you
can
just blew my mind a little bit.
make some guys Bucks fans happy and have Zora Stevenson be the play-by-play voice and bring back Katie George as the
I
sideline
think Katie's
reporter.
gone. I don't need Katie George back. I'm good. Katie George can go away. But Zora is the real deal. She is I mean, she is so smart. She is so well versed in the game of basketball. I mean, I'm the thing I'm worried about Zora is that she's gonna go national in a couple of years.
Mm.
Because she's so good. Like if I'm ESPN, I'd hire her now. She is fantastic. I love that. I'm in. Let's let's all write letters to our friend Alex Lasry and tell him he needs to hire Zora.
I mean, does any like Bucks or Brewers fan feel like the last resort would be to somehow have Craig Deshawn just be the play-by-play voice and see how he does with basketball?
We all love Craig, and Craig's a great guy.
Go Hawks because he's a Whitewater alumni.
There you go. And when Craig fills in for the Brewers or when Craig, I like Craig in his role. I think he's really good at that sideline reporting, really good at that pre and post game, really good at the fill-in work. Like I said, I really like Craig, but I'm hoping there, without due respect to Craig, I hope there's a bigger splash. But we'll see.
I'm gonna throw another name out there because I don't know if it'd be great to throw out maybe Ian Eagle, or doesn't Ian Eagle have a son?
I think he does. So Ian does the next games. I don't think Ian's leaving the New York City. I mean, I think he's staying there, but he does have a son who's in the
Noah Eagle or whatever. Maybe.
Yeah. All right. Not a bad idea. I don't hate it.
All right. Let's move over to the other Eastern Conference final series. I watched a little bit of it. It seems like this playoff run has been a coming out party, as some of the national pundits have said, of Trae Young, Devin Booker, but even throw in Kevin Huerter, because Kevin Huerter had 27 in the Game 7 win for the Hawks.
Did have a game. Yeah, he did have a Game 7, but it's interesting. You look at the Hawks roster in the playoffs, and Trae Young's averaging 29 points a game. But then after that, John Collins, 13.9, Bogdanovich, 13.8, Gallinari, 12.5, Huerter, 11.6, Capella, 10.3. It's like you got 5 guys who are averaging double digits after Trae Young, but none of them are averaging 20 points a game. None of them doing anything especially special. But they're just doing it as a team. It's like every game, Young and someone else step up and have a game. And in Game 7, it was Huerter. And in other games, it's been Bogdanovich. In other games, it's been Gallinari. But this is another team that's missing a starter. DeAndre Hunter is a starter for them. He averaged in the 5 games against the Knicks, he averaged 10.8 points per game and shot 37.5% from 3-point land. But again, he's another guy. He's out for the year. So every team's been affected by injuries. I just don't see how the Hawks have enough offense with the way they play. You let Trae Young get 30, and if you can keep it, if you can keep the other guys at their average, as opposed to going off for 20, or Huerter, if you could find a way to keep them all under 20, I just don't know that they have enough offense.
Okay. The other thing I want to kind of throw out there about that series was, obviously I was watching some stuff. Do we feel like Ben Simmons is you feel like he's I mean, it's unfair to kind of compare him to make him Giannis is a better player.
Right.
But it's just, he cannot shoot.
He needs to figure out his game. You are absolutely right. He cannot shoot. He cannot shoot. He's made 5 3-pointers in 4 years. In Game 7, he was 2 for 4. I mean, he wouldn't even shoot, and he got fouled intentionally with 3 minutes left and made 1 out of 2 because they knew to put him at the line. I'd
He
be
didn't really
shocked.
score that much in the fourth quarter. I was seeing some things that were he didn't really score a
Right.
ton from like game 3 onward.
No, he didn't. Games 4 through 7, he didn't take a shot in the fourth quarter. Games 4 through 7, he didn't take a shot. I would be shocked if he was on the 76ers next year. I don't know exactly how his game fits to the NBA with everybody needing to be able to shoot from the outside, unless you surround him with 4 shooters and let him go to work. But then is he a point guard? Is he a point forward? Is he a point center? Does he have to start modeling his game more after Giannis and just putting his head down and getting to the hoop more? But he's 6'9". He's not 6'11", 7 foot. So even those 2-3 inches shorter that he is than Giannis are going to hurt him. I don't know where his fit is. I don't know. I almost think as good as he's been and as good as people think he is, and as talented a rebounder and passer he is, he might be like a 6th man for the rest of his career. And just like that guy you bring on off the bench to pass and to play defense and to rebound and to finish around the basket. And if he has a great game, great. But I don't know where the fit is for Ben Simmons in today's NBA.
You label him as a 6th man. It's kind of like he's a poor man's version of Lou Williams.
Yeah, I mean and Lou Williams. Speaking of Lou Williams, he's on Atlanta, but it's like, you think of the 6 men we've seen over the years, where it's Lou Williams or it's Jamal Crawford, or it's like these guys who can just come out and shoot. And Ben Simmons has to figure out. He has to figure out what his game is going to be, because right now, I mean, he wasn't even on the court at the very end last night in Game 7. He can't be on the court. He can't be on the court. He can play again. He can play defense and he can pass and he can rebound. He can do a lot of things well, but he cannot put the ball in the basket except for layups and dunks. And that's not. I mean, and he's not Shaq. Shaq could only lay up and dunk, but he was 7'2" and he was bigger than everyone else. Ben Simmons isn't bigger than anybody.
All right, so let's just I want to get it's kind of a total surprise that we got the Bucks and the Hawks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah. It's kind of cool that it seems like obviously some of the things that you can tie into this series are the Hawks used to play in Milwaukee, which is kind of like the Braves used to play
right.
in Milwaukee.
Sure.
We have the whole Budenholzer. He coached both teams. Jeff Teague played on both teams. Tony Snell, hopefully he doesn't kill us.
I mean, he's only played in 7 games in the playoffs, and he's averaging 7 minutes a game. So I don't think he's a factor this year.
Okay, yeah, that's a little bit of a joke.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole Bogdanovich
so that's the story.
Trade.
Right. That's the story. I mean, as much as the other things are cute side, even Budenholzer being the coach, and we'll hear stories of when he was the number 1 seed in Atlanta and they could never get past LeBron. And that's going to just feed more into this whole Budenholzer narrative of being a great regular season coach, but not a great playoffs coach. So we're going to hear that story. And that's more than a sideline, but that's a side dish. The entree is Bogdanovich. The entree is, I remember going Facebook Live the night of the NBA trade deadline of free agency opening, when Drew Holiday and Bogdanovich are both coming to Milwaukee. And your starting lineup is Holiday, Bogdanovich, Middleton, Giannis, and Lopez. And who's going to outscore that lineup? And we talked about it for a couple of days. And then all of a sudden we realized, what was it? Alex Lasry's tweet or whatever it was. There was a tweet that went out before it was supposed to get sent out, and it violated NBA protocol, and it wasn't okay. And that trade, and then Bogdanovich had the choice to keep the trade or void it. He decided to void it. He wanted to be a free agent. He went to Atlanta. I fully expect Wednesday night at Fiserv, I expect the Bucks fans to unload on Bogdanovich. It wasn't his fault that the news got leaked, but it was his fault that he chose not to come to Milwaukee. Even after the news was leaked, he still could have said, "Yep, I'm in. I'm going to Milwaukee." And he said no to Milwaukee. So if I will be there as a fan at Game 1, and I'm booing Bogdanovich every time he touches the ball. You chose not to be here. That's on you, buddy. And to be honest, he hasn't been that great. during the playoffs, he's averaging 13.8 points a game, which is fine. During the regular season, he did average 16 points a game. He shot 43.8% from three. So he had a good season, but he was pretty inconsistent. And again, it goes back to their whole roster of after Trae Young, generally someone steps up, but it's somebody different every night. But man, I just, the second he touches that ball, everybody should be booing him.
All right, let's start with what was your prediction at the beginning of the year for like the Eastern Conference Finals? Who was going to be in it?
In the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah.
Oh, that was before the Nets. I would have said the Bucks and the Sixers.
Okay.
Actually, I probably would have said the Bucks and the Celtics.
Okay. It's Jason Tatum before Jaylen Brown
Tatum
went
and
down.
Brown, healthy, assuming a healthy Kemba Walker, which never happened all year long.
And now that's a little bit of a mess because he was just traded to the Thunder.
Jaylen Brown got hurt before the playoffs, so they didn't even have Jaylen Brown in the playoffs. But based on what I saw, and I'm thinking about where did I have the Miami Heat? I thought the Miami Heat would fall back to earth a little bit. I didn't think the Nets with just Durant and Irving would be good enough. So it was really in my mind, it was between the Bucks, the Sixers, and the Celtics. And those before the season started, those would have been the three teams I would have picked. And because I'm more of a Bucks and a Celtics fan, I would have said, hey, Bucks Celtics, Eastern Conference Finals.
I thought going into the playoffs, there's going to be one of these big three, the Bucks, the Sixers, or the Nets. So it's obviously me being a Bucks fan, obviously wanting them too. So that was probably my thought.
I'm saying going into before the season started.
Yeah.
Going into the playoffs, I would have bet a ton of money on the Sixers to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I never saw the Hawks beating them. And I probably would have bet on the Nets, knowing that Harden was coming back, knowing that Irving and Durant were healthy. I probably would have said Nets Sixers 1 versus 2. It's only the second time in the modern era of basketball that both number 1 seeds are not in the conference finals. That's crazy.
And it's 2 years in a row that the number 1 seed in the East has gone out in semis.
Yeah, not even making the Eastern Conference Finals.
Let's go with the prediction for the series. What do you have?
I predicted the Bucks in 6 over the Nets. Even after they lost the first 2 games, I didn't think they'd win 4 in a row, but I still thought the Bucks would win the series. When it got to game 7, I was a lot more nervous. I did not predict them to win game 7 when it got down to it. But I sure am glad they did. I think the Bucks win in 5.
Yeah, I'm hoping that because I'll be at the Deer District for game 5. I'm going up with a work buddy.
I think Atlanta's had a great run. They ran through the Knicks. They played toe to toe with the Sixers. Even in games they lost, they could have won. Like the Bucks could have won game 5. The Hawks definitely could have won game 6. They were up big, and Philly came back on them, kind of like they did in game 5 at Philly. I
think the Bucks can also take advantage of the Hawks in the paint. Like they can't really do that with the Six. Couldn't really do that if it would have been the Sixers because the Sixers have Embiid.
Right, but Capella's good, but he's a little undersized. Collins is a little undersized. Bogdanovich is 6'10". I mean, not Bogdanovich. Gallinari is 6'10". So he's got some size. He's got some size too.
Great 3-point shooter. He's been known for that.
So it's hard because it's so easy to kind of overlook them and not really overlook them, but to, thinking about it and thinking about, I just like the matchup for the Bucks. And then again, if Trae Young has a 50-point game, that changes everything. If Trae Young comes in here on Wednesday night and goes for 50, the Hawks could steal game 1. You got to hold, kind of like with Durant. When Durant went for 49, if the Bucks had just held him to 40, the Bucks win game 5 and the Bucks win the series in 6. But But he goes for 49, and then he goes for 48 and granted it was an overtime game, but he goes for 48 in game 7. If they get really beaten down by Trae Young and they give up a 50 burger, they could lose one that they're not supposed to, and then it's a whole different series. But I'm picking Bucks in 5.
I'm gonna go Bucks in 5 because I'm gonna be in the Deer District for that, and that would be nuts to be in downtown Milwaukee if the Bucks punch a ticket to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1974.
That's right. Yeah, first time they won in 71. They were there in 74.
Should have went in 01.
Yes, they should have. But it's but you still got to play the games, and it's even though we weren't expecting to see the Hawks, even in terms if you'd asked the Bucks, they weren't expecting to see the Bucks, or they weren't expecting to see the Hawks. We expected it to be the Sixers. And I hope that the Bucks are mentally strong enough to stay focused and to play the kind of defense they played against the Nets, and not to take the Hawks less seriously. They have to stay focused. They have to play that defense. They have to come out with that fire Wednesday night, because you don't at this point you can't mess around. We've seen it too often. We saw it in Game 3 in Toronto. Right? Bucks up big, Bucks up in overtime, Bucks with a chance to go up 3-0. You go up 3-0, you win that series. But they let Toronto steal that game, and that changed the whole series. Don't let the Hawks steal a game. Do what you're supposed to do. Take care of your business, take care of your home court, and then good things happen.
All right, let's move over to the West a little bit because
Sure.
the Suns won game 1, and Devin Booker had a good game. They have Chris Paul's kind of out due to COVID right now.
Yep.
What's your thought on that series?
I mean, we still don't know the long term of Kawhi Leonard or Chris Paul. Is Chris Paul going to really be out for the 10 full days until he gets those 2 negative tests, or is he going to? If he has 2 days of negative testing, he come back earlier. We don't know. It's a huge unknown. It's a big deal they got game 1 because the Clippers showed they could win without Kawhi, and that the Suns were able to hold serve and win game 1 at home without Chris Paul just gives them a huge boost of confidence. Devin Booker has become a superstar in front of our eyes. If you're not watching, for people who are listening, if you're not watching Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns, this kid is legit. This kid is a superstar. He is one of the best players in the NBA.
Is he the next Kobe? Because that's one of the comparisons out there.
Yeah, I'm not making that comparison just because Kobe's mental strength was so off the charts that but is he I don't know. I mean, is he in the Allen Iverson category? I mean, a 40-point triple-double is a big deal. So a lot depends on when Chris Paul comes back. Does Kawhi Leonard, is Kawhi Leonard's knee injury more serious than we think? Is he out for the year? They may not announce that ever. They might just keep saying he's day-to-day. The Clippers really found something against the Jazz, going small and shooting all those threes. Even the other night, like, Phoenix was up by 9 with 2.5 minutes left, and then all of a sudden they're up by 2. Clippers hit a couple threes in a row, and it's a different game. It's hard to win a series like that. It's easy to win a game like that. You get hot from 3, you win a game. It's hard to win a series being so reliant on the 3-point shot. My heart is cheering for the Suns. I like the Suns. I've always been a little bit of a Suns fan since Kevin Johnson and Charles Barkley and Tom Chambers and Dan Marley. The one thing I would like to say when we talk about storylines, however, is it sure would be nice as a Bucks fan to beat Kawhi Leonard in the finals. There'd be a really nice sense of revenge for the Bucks Raptors series a couple of years ago if the Bucks could take down Kawhi in the finals. And I know I'm getting ahead of myself, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but looking at storylines, Phoenix has Frank Kaminsky, and that's cute, but he doesn't play that much. And we'll hear about the coin flip about who got Kareem when they were both expansion teams in '68. But there's a real storyline with the Bucks and the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard versus the Bucks that I would love to see play out.
The other thing, if it's Bucks Suns, you could probably make some sort of, man, if Kobe was still alive, maybe he would be at five watching that series, because didn't he like obviously he said to Giannis, you're gonna be an MVP,
Yeah.
or and all that stuff.
If the Bucks play the Suns in the finals, Torrey Craig is guaranteed a ring.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Torrey
Yeah,
Craig
because
playing,
he was on the team at the beginning of the year.
and he's playing, it's interesting. And something, this goes back to that story of like, sometimes guys just aren't great fits with their team. Torrey Craig was on the Denver Nuggets and playing big minutes in the regular season, playing big minutes in the playoffs, knocking down threes, playing really good defense. He came to the Bucks and he just never found a role. He never found a spot where he fit quite right. He was behind Middleton and Giannis, and then he was behind Portis, and he was behind DiVincenzo, he was behind DJ Augustine, he was behind all these players. And so the Bucks give him to Phoenix for nothing. Like they didn't get anything back. They just, they traded him for cash. And now he's playing huge minutes for the Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference Finals. Again, it's all about the right fit and finding the right fit for you and for the team. And he just didn't fit in Milwaukee. And, hopefully it doesn't come back to bite him and he doesn't hit a big shot in the finals against the Bucks. But it's just interesting to keep an eye on a guy like that who was on the Bucks this year. And when you watch him play, you're going to think to yourself, man, this guy could have really helped this team. But it just, for whatever reason, it just didn't work out.
The other thing that might as well hit on, the Bucks are the last team, or one of the last teams remaining that last won the NBA title. Clippers has never won. Suns has never won.
Yep.
Hawks was like 1958 when they were in St.
50,
Louis.
Yeah. Right. They were the same. They've never won in Atlanta.
Yeah. So what I want to kind of say here is that obviously we got the juggernauts out of the playoffs, but how much good is it for the NBA? And even though people are going to whine like hell about it, that there isn't a LeBron in the finals, that there isn't Harden and Kyrie and Durant in the finals, et cetera, to have these some small market teams, as you can say, like Milwaukee's a small market, Phoenix
Phoenix was a small market and now it's a big market, but it's not a traditional big market.
It's a retiree market.
Yeah, it
is what it is basically.
Obviously LA's huge and Atlanta's big. Atlanta's the number 7 market, but they just beat the number 4 market, Philly.
Yeah, they're not the team not teams that jump out right away.
Right, and the Hawks aren't a team that has huge followership. It's not like the whole city goes crazy for the Hawks the way that the whole city of Philly goes crazy for the Sixers. That's an interesting question.
Because it's not gonna feel like Adam Silver's wanting this or the refs want this, and it's not rigged. It's not like
Bucks if it was rigged, the Nets and the Sixers would be playing in the Eastern Conference Finals, right? You'd have Brooklyn versus Philly. Like that's rigging it. It's a great point. It's a great question because for so long we've seen the stars dictate where they go and how they win. We saw it with Golden State. We saw it with LeBron going to Cleveland and then LeBron going to LA. And so the fact that the Clippers are still there, but the Clippers are the secondary team in LA to the Lakers. That Brooklyn and that it was a fun story that the Knicks made the playoffs, but even the Knicks didn't beat, had the Knicks beaten and the Knicks played the Sixers, the NBA would have rather had the Knicks and the Sixers than the Hawks and the Sixers. It's a really good story for people who still believe in sports and who don't want to get caught up in the business of sports. But the business of sports is so prevalent now that it's on people's minds. Oh, Milwaukee, this tiny market. Oh, Phoenix, this newer team and this team without a huge, Phoenix and Atlanta are 2 teams without, and even the Clippers too, teams without huge fan bases. Atlanta, Phoenix, there's other things going on. The Clippers have the Lakers. The Bucks are just like, a small market team. The NBA can't be loving this. The NBA would have loved the Clippers and the Lakers and the Nets and the Sixers, the 2 LA teams against Brooklyn and Philly. But I think and I hope for those fans who are, the NBA knuckleheads are going to find something to enjoy and are going to like it. But I hope for the casual fans too, they're able to look at this and see, you know what? It's not always LeBron, and it's not always Durant, and it's not always Steph Curry, and it's not always the superstars. Other guys. Yes, every team has a superstar, but every team has a star. And the fact that these teams could get through and play as teams kind of makes it fun. It's new blood, right? Whoever wins it this year is new blood, and that's a lot of fun.
I'm gonna say this because obviously as a Bucks fan, I've been waiting for a player like Giannis. I've been waiting for us to go through this after all those years of TJ Ford and Andrew Bogut and Michael Redd and Brandon Jennings and all that, to finally get a player like Giannis and to make some noise right now and hopefully get that title. I hope if we get to the NBA finals to be in one of the clinching games and just be like, and see how nuts that would be. I'm gonna throw one other question as what's more likely the next couple weeks in general. This will throw the Packers in here for a little bit. What's more likely? Aaron Rodgers shows up at Fiserv Forum for a Bucks playoff game, or Aaron Rodgers to show up at camp?
Oh, Fiserv Forum, and it's 100% to zero. It is 100% to zero. Aaron Rodgers is not coming to camp, at least at the beginning of camp. He will not be there. I don't think he's coming to Fiserv either, unless he's going to a private suite. I just don't think he wants to be in the public right now. But there's a much better chance that he shows up at Fiserv than shows up at any mini camp or training camp before, training camp starts at the end of July. He's not going to be there day one either.
Okay, who would you rather boo, Aaron Rodgers or Bogdan Bogdanovic?
Bogdanovic for sure. I'm not pro what Aaron Rodgers is doing, but I am anti-Packers and anti-Packers management. So I would not boo Aaron Rodgers. He's still one of the best quarterbacks on earth. As of right now, he's still the Green Bay Packers quarterback. I'm not booing the Green Bay Packers quarterback. I'll boo Bogdanovic, who chose not to be here, over Aaron Rodgers, who's been screwed by his management for 15 years.
All right, so let's end it with this question. Is it the Bucks? Obviously, is this the NBA Finals this year? The Bucks to lose? Is it for them to win it?
It's the Eastern Conference for them to lose for sure. I don't know about, because they would be the road team against either Phoenix or the Clippers. But you know what? Part of me says yes. Looking at the youth and the inexperience of the Suns, and I know how good Devin Booker is, and I know how good they're playing as a team. Knowing that Kawhi Leonard is banged up and that he's not healthy, knowing that the Hawks are Trae Young and a bunch of guys who are good but not great, I think the Bucks are the best team left. The Bucks should win the championship. That doesn't mean they will. But maybe it is theirs to lose this year.
I agree with that, and I think you can also kind of look at it. The Bucks went through that whole playoff run against the Raptors and using that as a little bit of a learning experience.
So I think that's a great point. They have that experience that Atlanta doesn't have and Phoenix doesn't have. The Clippers have it a little bit, but if Kawhi's hurt, how long can the Clippers really keep doing it? At some point you need a superstar on the court, and Paul George is only one guy. You just can't keep doing it with these bit pieces that they keep doing. They're going to need Kawhi, and if he's out, that's a bigger problem than they want to admit.
All right. As much as I want to talk about maybe some Brewers stuff, or
I'm wearing my new I got this Brewers hat for Father's Day. It's the official Father's Day hat. It was a great present dope from the Rumbles.
Nice. I still got to get the Fiserv Forum, so
I'll be there Wednesday night. Game 1, baby.
I mean, if you had tickets for some
I wish I did.
But I might try to go if they win the title and go to the first game, that maybe the banner goes up.
Sure.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
So
I totally agree. That would be awesome.
As much as I want to add talking about the Brewers or the Aaron Rodgers stuff, we can talk about that in a different episode.
Sure.
Thunder, thanks for joining me, and thanks everybody for listening to Podcast on D-Shot. All right. Thank you, everybody.